Here we are. Oh, it's so good to be here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, who's excited? Tonight's going to be such a great night. I'm so excited for what's about to happen, you know?
Now, Max, hold on. I got to interrupt you, but I'm going to let you finish.
Okay.
I'm going to let you finish.
I got to just make an announcement that today is my boy Aaron's birthday. So we
28 never looked so good.
So we got to sing. Brandon, since you got a microphone, look, we got a logo and everything.
I love it.
We got a real
looks
masculine logo. So, Brandon, will you lead us in a chorus
I would love to.
of
Make it
happy
your best, y'all.
birthday?
Make it your best.
Hey,
Just any chorus?
key of G, please.
Key of A, R, R,
I
O.
don't know if that's G or not. I don't
Me
have
either.
perfect pitch. Happy birthday.
To you.
Happy birthday
To you.
Happy birthday, dear Aaron. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you all. I feel like you really meant that, and it was so nice.
Oh, we meant it.
I love you guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here on my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, see
But I'm
what's
here,
up.
so I love you
commitment.
guys. It's
What a
awesome.
nice guy. Aaron and I talked before service, and so this is actually his night. So it's not really Baywatch. It's
Yeah.
Aaron's birthday.
Well, that's
So-
right. That's
so
right. And
You're
what's
welcome.
awesome about that is Max gave me clearance to say whatever I want.
You're welcome.
So at some point, y'all might be like jumping and hiding under your chairs.
Oh, man.
Out of
So you're
embarrassment.
welcome. All right, for anybody who does not know or who just came and this is your first week, we are in a series called Baywatch. It's question and answers all about relationships. And you came to the best week because tonight we're talking about sex.
What?
Let's talk about it.
Uh-oh.
Let's talk about
Baby.
you.
Marriage and purity.
Talk about all the good things and the bad things that make me. Yeah, they
Oh,
do.
nice.
Let's
All
talk
right.
about it.
Well, let me go. Let me start off, let you guys know who we got here. We got Brandon here, our worship pastor.
Yeah.
Kelsey, his wife, was
Yeah.
really sick.
My wife is beautiful and smarter and kinder and better than me in every way, but she also has a terrible cough and she's super sick and she's really sad.
So we
that she
settled
couldn't
with
be here,
Brandon.
So, womp womp.
Next up, we got Aaron Barth, the legend. Whitney Barth, our associate pastor. Rachel Baba and Trustin Baba, pastors of our church, their lead pastors. All right, we're going to jump right into it. These guys have so much wisdom. So if you do not have a notepad or your cell phone out, you now have the permission and the charge to get your notes out. Because seriously, they're going to give you some money stuff. All right, here we go. What, and this is the first question, all right? What is the greatest advice on marriage, purity, or sex you have ever received? Brandon. Whoa.
What is the greatest advice on marriage, purity, or sex you've ever received? I'm actually going to steal this from a friend, Tim Horton. He
Okay.
He was here last week.
Let's see if he
and
said
I
it already.
Hope he didn't already say it, but full credit to Tim Horton. But he lived by this principle that he had to become the one before he found the one. Ooh.
Glory.
And so
That'll preach.
spending some time to make sure that you are right in your relationship with God and sure of who you are in Christ before you put your identity
good.
in someone else.
Yeah. All right, two more people.
I'll
Fight
go.
for it.
I had a friend of mine who was a pastor. He said, Trustin, you got to stay holy. You got to stay humble. You got to keep your pecker in your pants.
You're welcome.
We went deep fast.
I know.
Hey.
I can't believe you already said
It
that
says
word.
the word sex up there, so
I love it. All right, one more person. This is your show, remember.
all right, let's go. Go to the next
All right.
question. Oh.
I don't know.
You don't know?
You
All
only
right.
marry one time. That's the point. And so you have to be very sure before you get married that is the one playing
That's
off
good.
your word, that you're going to marry. And so I got married young. I don't recommend it. I got really lucky and God gave me a lot of grace. and mercy, but and a wonderful husband. But you have to be very sure. So be patient. God will bring you the right one.
Love it. Love
I
it.
will say, before Max jumps to the next one, my mom and dad,
Your show.
when they got married, before that happened, my dad did not feel like they were equally yoked. I know a couple weeks ago, Tristan and Rachel had mentioned that specifically about being yoked equally. And my dad didn't feel like that. So he broke up with my mother, and for about a year, they went their separate ways. And my mom got to know the Lord during that time, and they got together again, and the rest is history. So it's so important to do that, because if you don't, look at the statistics, you'll see it. You'll see it. It
Preach.
will not work out well.
Love it. All right, here we go. First question. We're diving right into marriage. What benefits does pursuing purity offer me in my relationship with my current significant other or someone you're dating, with God and with my future spouse? How do I set and follow appropriate boundaries? Why is it important to pursue purity now? Go ahead.
Why is it important to pursue purity now?
Yes.
Because why pursue purity later? There's no day like the present. You might as well pursue purity. That's a hard word to say. Pursue it now.
Love it. Anybody else?
I mean, just to go kind of heavy, kind of fast, but decisions that you make outside of the boundaries that God has set up for you, the damage is not irrevocable, and it's not anything that can't be redeemed by God. But it is something that will cause you massive amounts of shame and hurt and pain. And then you hold on to all that, and then you bring that into a marriage, right, with another person, and you kind of heap all of this pain and all of this shame and all this bad stuff, all this scar tissue onto them, and then that negatively affects your marriage before it even really has a chance to get established and settled. And so it's not something that God can't redeem, but it is something that should be pursued really hard.
Yeah, thank you. Next question. How do you keep each other accountable? Do you need to keep each other accountable?
I think that there's a couple layers to accountability. For Rachel and I, we have access to everything of each other's. So Rachel has all of my passwords for my email and my phone and my computer, and we share a bank account and all those kind of things. So we have full access into each other's lives. So I never find myself, like all the time, she'll be like, let me see your phone, to like give it to one of the kids, or because she wants to like send her a message from my phone or something. And I'm not ever nervous to hand that over, but I see couples all the time like, no, you can't have my phone. Well, why can they not have, is what's on your phone that they can't see, you know? And so I think having some transparency is super important. But then really accountability isn't something that can only be managed by your wife or your husband or a boyfriend or girlfriend, because there's some things in life that you struggle with as a man or a woman that the other gender just can't even fully get, like can't even comprehend it all the way. And so you've got to have some accountability in life established outside of a guy to a girl or a girl to a guy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to mentorship maybe, you know, in the sense that you can't have one mentor for everything. You know what I mean? Like some mentors are good for life skills, some are good for discipleship, others are good for some other reasons, you know what I mean? So I think it's the same thing for accountability, you know what I mean? Like everyone can't keep you accountable in every area.
I think communication is key too. I think making sure that there's a level of transparency, but also communication. Whitney and I, we talk a lot about a lot of things and all the things. I mean, there's nothing that we can hide from each other. And so start that now with your friends. Start that now with people who are mentoring you or pouring into your life, folks that, you know, you come to church with and get intimate with in this group setting. It's important to communicate. Otherwise, it may be a lot harder once you start getting into relationships and eventually into marriage.
Yeah, thank you. Next question.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
And all how you do it is really seek for someone that will support you in your struggles and help you find strength in them. So for girls, I know emotionally we lead and fall there, and then becomes a snowball of the affection, all the things. But for men, it's more like the visual. So you have to keep yourself accountable with even with what you see. And I love what Tristan does is when he sees something that's like trouble, yeah. then he'll text his accountability partner, or he'll text me and be like, "Hey, this lady be looking trashy," and so to keep his eyes focused away from the trouble. And so for me, emotionally, I'm not going to attach myself. That's having conversations, sending text messages and things to someone that does not belong in my life, that I don't want to pour into and invest in. I'm not going to text Aaron and be like, "Can you believe what Trustin did?" Even though we are the best of friends, it is not emotionally safe for me to depend on him. So we group message together, or, and so you have to find boundaries together.
Yeah, I heard this really cool thing when I went to counseling. Yeah. And he said something about proactive accountability versus reactive accountability. And that's the biggest thing that we struggle with sometimes, is that as you grow up, you go into reactive and you're like, "Oh, I messed up. Okay, hey, I messed up." As opposed to, "Hey, I'm about to mess up, so I'm going to text you and tell you that this is about to happen."
Right.
So it doesn't happen.
It turns into a confession. Accountability is not for confession, it's for protection.
Yeah, I ain't a pope. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's like preventative maintenance on your car. Like, if the only time I took my car in was when smoke was coming out of the engine, then, I would need to buy a car all the time. But I do preventative things to keep my car maintained the way it should run and the way it should go.
Preach.
And so transparency, honesty, in our house, Kelsey and I live by this principle of, the Scots don't lie. And it's just this thing that,
Neither do the hips.
Right. Scots and my hips don't lie. Very small hips. They do not lie. But we don't lie. So we know that going into any conversation that this is going to be an honest conversation with one another. We're not going to hide anything from one another, even if it's difficult to say that thing.
Yeah, that's good. All right, I'm going. Here we go. What is the biggest struggle in marriage?
That we're two different people.
Yeah, living with
And
another
so,
person.
even if if you're not married, but you have a best friend, you and your best friend can, really love each other, but you still are different people, so you can still argue about things and still have different opinions about things. And so I think just that you're two different people. And so you have different vantage points.
And that's okay.
It's okay.
And you got to work at it. You have to. So Tristan always says, if your arm is broken, you're going to go to the hospital. So if your relationship is broken, if your marriage is broken, you've got to go to the counselor, which is help. The counselor is the hospital. And the hardest part of that is actually doing it and working at your marriage. Marriage is hard. It's one of the funnest things that you'll ever do because of all the things that come with it, but it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
Yeah. Next question. What is your biggest fear about your relationship? And so I think maybe this question would be good to have asked you, or to even think about, as you were dating or as you were getting engaged, what were some fears that you had?
Mine was to do exactly, to be exactly what I saw modeled. Like my dad fell away from God. He was a pastor, committed adultery, and abandoned our family. And so I expected in my mind for that to happen too. But it didn't, and it won't. And so that was my biggest fear coming into the relationship.
I would say the biggest fear for me, at least when I got married, was the finality of it and the exclusivity of it. Knowing that, oh man, I still remember driving to the church, forgetting my black socks to wear when I was driving. I thought, oh man, I don't have my black socks. But I remember driving and thinking, I'm about to go marry this woman, and she's going to be the one for the rest of my life. And so it was a big deal to me. And the gravity of it just really hit me in the car driving there by myself. So I would say the biggest fear for me was knowing that I was going to be married to this lady until I die.
Which just means it's really important, so make sure that you make the right decision.
That's the biggest thing, the gravity of the decision that you're going to make eventually. And you've got to start thinking in those terms when you start dating somebody. You've got to start thinking of that because things move quickly, and you've got to think ahead.
Yeah. And I think maybe even if when that day comes, if it doesn't seem like a big decision, then I think you need to evaluate. Like, are you planning to be married one time? And I think that's what speaks into the fear. That's a healthy fear.
It's good, Maximus. No, that's
You
all.
have something. I
I'm
saw
just,
you.
I'm just the amen corner.
Okay, I love it. Okay, next one. Who is your goal couple? I'm coming to you, Brandon, so get ready. You thought you could get away from me, didn't you? Who is your goal couple or the couple you look up to when it comes to marriage?
BAEWATCH.
There are a million. So there are a million for a million different reasons. Like if you guys come to Living Church on Sunday mornings, like Dee and Leva Lacey, they're a goal couple. Hallelujah. And then like for Kelsey and I mean Aaron and Whitney Barth and Tristan and Rachel Babbitt, like they're goal couples because you
Hashtag.
Hashtag goal couples. Because you just look to the part of their marriage or the part of their life that you would like to attain. You know, like I see the Barths have raised 2 phenomenal teenagers that are like serving God. And I'm at a stage in my life where we're kind of just now thinking about having kids. We don't have kids yet. We have a
Just
dog.
kidding.
I'm excited that you're thinking about it. Yeah!
Brandon and Kelsey.
It's like
Now they got a house.
It's like
Now
a
they got a
thought.
house.
It's a thought way back here, like in the
Oh, okay,
furthest
okay,
recesses
sorry.
of my mind. Start the rumors, put it on Twitter. So I look to the different, but like that's something that I would hope for in my future. And so I look to their marriage and their relationship and their lives and see how did they get there. And then also just outside resources, like there's a marriage ministry called with Jimmy and Karen Evans that was amazing for me and Kelsey. It's called Marriage Today. Don't really worry about it until you get married, but it's incredible. All the resources are really good there. So, yeah.
One more person, goal couple.
I'll go. No,
Rocky
I
and
always
Adrian.
defer to you. You can go. But
Hey, yo, Adrian.
for me in my life, both sets of my grandparents, at least one of them in the couple, broke the cycle of either abuse or addiction or all kinds of things in their marriage by drawing a line in the sand and saying, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And so for both sets of my grandparents, I look at them with honor and respect, knowing that just because something was in my past doesn't mean it has to be in my future. And so they're people that I aspire to. I've gained so much wisdom in my life from. And I think that, yeah. When Aaron and I got married, all of our grandparents collectively were still alive and still married. And between them, there was like 200 and something years of uninterrupted marriage. So that's a big deal and something with our grandparents that we aspire to. So.
Yeah, that's good. All right, now we're going to go into more of sex. Woke some kids up there. You're welcome.
Get woke. BAEWATCH.
Yeah!
And purity. And so, as we're asking these questions, at the end of these questions, we'll have a little time where we'll let you ask any questions that you have that have to do with relationships. Did you hear that first word I used? I said any question, all right? So after we're done with this section, be thinking about it. Be thinking about it, all right?
All right, what's the first one?
Here we go. How far is too far?
How far
Anything
is
that
too
makes
far?
you ask that question.
Yeah, if you're asking,
Let's, I got a good answer.
Hit me with it.
Zach, stand up. Here,
Uh-oh.
Come stand on the stairs by Max. Okay, wait, that's good right there. You're
Too
going to be a
far.
representative of everybody in the room. Do you want to get married someday? Okay, so he wants to get married someday. The girl are you dating anyone right now? Okay, so
Good job.
the girl
Good
he's
job.
not dating anybody right now. He may not even know, no, I'm not about to hook you up. So he may not even know the girl that he's going to marry someday, right? Let's imagine that right now that girl has a boyfriend that isn't you. Y'all following me? What do you want him to do with her? You don't want him feeling her up?
Right.
You don't want him having sex with her? Okay. So, how far is too far? You have to ask yourself, my spouse is out there somewhere. What do I want somebody doing with him or her? And then that's what you can do with them. So if you're in a dating relationship, I think you can hold hands.
Okay.
And I think you can kiss goodnight.
Ooh.
But you don't want some dude making out with your future wife for 10 minutes, right? Y'all don't want that. The person you're going to marry, you don't want them doing some freaky stuff with someone else other than you, right?
30
Okay.
seconds only.
Yeah.
No, you're right. 10 seconds. My bad. My bad. My
So
bad.
how
Whoa,
far
my
is too
bad.
far? That's
My
the
bad.
answer.
My bad. I'm not married. What do I know? All right. We good? Next one.
Sorry, Zach. I had to just pick somebody.
Hit him with that. Brrrah.
No,
All right, here we go. What are the risks?
I think I'm gonna go back to what I said.
Go ahead,
I said
Sonia.
it sillily, but I'm not. It's serious. Anything that makes you ask the question is too far because that means that you know there's a conviction in your heart that it
Yeah.
probably isn't right.
See, what we do is
Okay.
we say, here's the line. So
Right.
like if I step over this, I fall off the ledge. And so what we try to do is we try to live our life like this.
Right.
The problem with living your life like on the edge is that you might fall off. And so what we need to do is we need to say, you know what? I'm a safe distance from the line. I may be able, the Bible says all things are permissible but not beneficial. And so you may be able to straddle the line and not get yourself into trouble, but man, it's a lot easier to live life right here.
And I agree with him 100%, but can I just add one more thing? The emotional attachment is real too. The emotional attachment, guys, where you think it's just pleasure or whatever, and you are okay and you can move on, the girl gets emotionally attached, and it's a huge problem. That's why there's, the psycho ex-girlfriends, because when there's been attachment that's emotional with the sexual, it's hard for a girl to
It's hard to move on.
let go
from
of that. And so where for men it's pleasure, women, our struggle is the emotional attachment that we get from all of that. And so you have to be very careful to not attach yourself emotionally to somebody. And so holding hands, that begins your emotional attachment right there. Making out, even just kissing, you guys just kiss and feel it, but girls feel it internally. We feel our emotions. All the romance movies we've ever watched and seen become a thought in our mind that it becomes a fantasy. And so you have to be aware, gentlemen, you have to be a gentleman, be aware that it's not just a physical touch for a girl, it's an emotional attachment that you're developing. And then you wonder why this girl keeps chasing me down because
Right.
you emotionally attached to her.
Right, and your words are just as important as your hands when it comes to the emotional connection. And so if you're telling every girl you date that you love her, guess what? You don't. That's absurd. And so you need to be really, really wise with the words that you type on your phone. It's a lot easier nowadays. Gosh, I would have been so embarrassed to say some of the words that I've read some of y'all text to each other. I could have never, yeah, you can't. Once you say them, they're out there. So if you tell them on the first or second date that you love them, then by the fourth date, you're telling them you want to marry them. And then you're wondering, why in the world won't they leave me alone? Because you told them you wanted to marry them. Like, you have to be careful. So again, how far is too far? Your words matter too. A lot. That's really good, Rach.
That's one of the best things I've ever heard.
That was
is
so
that
good.
It's not only your hands, but your words that matter in a relationship.
Yeah.
For dudes, it might not.
True. I'll put that on a T-shirt.
No, for guys, it might not. You know what I'm saying?
Rachel.
Like if a girl told me she liked me or she loved me or whatever when I was, that didn't I wasn't crying over that. I'm like, okay, you like
And
me.
you boys, you all know what to say. You all
Yeah.
know what to say to make her swoon, to make her
Yeah.
excited, and
Yeah.
to make her get all the feels.
Yeah,
You
it's
guys know what to
manipulation.
say. Sly foxes. You know, because I was there and I did it.
Gotcha.
Look what I got. But I'm
You
telling
thought.
you, it doesn't work out like that all the time. So you got to know. Step it back and keep your words in your mouth because you can't let them out. You can't put them out there again and have the same feeling. Like the peckers thing that
No.
he talked about earlier.
No more peckers.
All right,
Move on.
Keep going.
Next question.
No
Keep
more
going,
pecker
Max.
talk. Hey, let me go on a little bit of that because I think this is a question that we should have asked the first week, but when do you know you love someone or you should say you love somebody?
Oh gosh.
Is there a right answer in this one?
I think that the accountability and
Yeah.
mentorship and some other people speaking into your life is really important in that
Yes.
process because love is not just an emotion, it's a decision.
Right.
And so, understanding who Rachel was and how God knit us together. I told her I loved her on accident. Like I had to fight to not say I love you for like 3 months. You know, like would be hanging
Right.
up. Okay, good night. Okay, good night. You hang up first. No, you hang up first, right? I'm doing all that stuff. And I had to literally fight the words, don't say I love you, for months. And then one night I was hanging up to say goodbye. I said, okay, I love you. Bye. I was like, whoa. And I tried to I was like, oh, my bad. I was talking to my mom earlier, and I said I love you to her. So, like, it's not something you just throw out there. Like, if you've been holding on to it for 3 months, then maybe you really love the
Right.
person.
And if you're 14,
No.
you don't love them.
No.
I got married young. I already said it, but not at 14, y'all. You don't be loving nobody
Gotcha.
at 14.
Gotcha, 14-year-olds. All right.
Can I just say this?
You can do
Whitney's
whatever you
talked
want.
about how she got married young, but that was how many years ago?
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
15 years ago. So, like, before you were even alive, they were married.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a different world.
It is.
Brandon, I saw you. I want to hear
No,
you.
I mean, I was just finding a place to rest the mic.
Oh,
no,
okay, never mind. Me too.
No, I mean, I think to go back to touch again on what Tristan said is love is a daily choice. And so if you feel like you're saying that out of just sheer emotion, or if you're saying it out of, if I say this, I hope I get something, then that's not it. That's
No,
not love.
right.
Or if like a week ago you said, I hate you.
Right.
Like if a week ago you got in a fight and you're like, I hate you. Well, then don't tell them you love
Right.
them.
Yeah.
Right,
Good
and
word.
if you're not ready and willing to like do their laundry and it's serious. Love is a choice, and so I mean, gosh, it's just it's said way too often.
Can I clarify something though?
Do it.
When you're in a relationship, it's not common to constantly be fighting and
Oh,
have
that's true.
emotional battles. Guys, let me tell you, and God placed you to lead your home, lead your family. But I'll tell you this: if you're dating someone and you're constantly fighting, why are you in the relationship? Get out. That is not real marriage. Real marriage is not an
Right.
emotional drain. It's work, but it's not that kind of work.
No.
We're not fighting all the time. He's not emotionally fighting and battling with me all the time.
No,
If
and
you
you're
are
not insecure and constantly
fighting,
needing- right.
Get out. It's not worth it. That's
No.
not real life. That's not real
There you
marriage.
go. Okay, here we go. Next one.
All right, keep going, Max.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how
That's
do you
good,
know?
Rich.
How do you know if you're still a virgin?
How do you know if you're still a virgin?
Yeah. Because I asked this question because I think there can be some confusion as far as what is having sex.
Okay, I would say that the medical definition of being a virgin is penetration. Is so when a male has physical intercourse with a female. But Webster's dictionary also talks about how sex is defined as any genital interaction. So
Got him.
if a hand interacts with a genital, or mouth interacts with a genital, that's considered sexual contact.
And there doesn't need to be a finishing moment, as we call it, an orgasm. That doesn't need to happen for this to be considered sex.
Right.
Or you to not be a
So
virgin or whatever.
I've known people that they're like, well, man, we're not having sex. We're
just fooling around.
we just do this and do this and do this and do this, and I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? What do you mean? That's some messed up form of religiosity. So now you're just being like really religious, but you're being super disobedient to what the Bible says.
I think there's
Yeah.
another end of it too, that I don't really know how to go about this. Your purity, your commitment to God is something that He recognizes, and so medically, no, you can't get your virginity back. You can't get your purity
What he's
back.
about to say is going to be so good.
But if anyone is here who may have asked this question or is thinking about this question, and something has happened to you that you didn't want happening, and I'm talking to guys and girls, if something's happened to you or you felt coerced or felt forced or were in a situation that made you uncomfortable but you went through with it anyway, medically, no, like we can't reclaim that, right? But God can restore and redeem anything and everything. And so know that you can still make that purity commitment to God. and you can still enter into a marriage pure and holy and blameless because the righteousness of Christ covers you. So
That's good.
Virginity is not a bad word, y'all. It's a
Right.
good word. But
Yeah.
even if you for some reason, whatever he said messed up or whatever, God's a God that restores. He's a God that makes things new. And I can tell you by experience that God restored me and made me new. And he gave me someone that never even had a girlfriend before. And I know I didn't deserve it. Kind of, yeah.
Surprise.
But I know I didn't deserve it. But you know what? God is the God of grace and mercy. And I can tell you, for all the times that I messed up, God honored my heart, and God honored my sacrifice, and really saw my heart in it. And so God is a God that restores and makes things new.
Yeah, that's good. Next question.
So don't feel beat up. Like if you've had sex or if you've had sexual interactions, God's not mad at you.
Right.
Yeah.
God doesn't hate you. He's not about to kick you out of the church. He loves you.
Right.
But he loves you so much to say, okay, let that be your past and let's start over.
Yeah.
Yeah, amen. So, what does the Bible say about masturbation?
It's a great question. As far as the physical act of masturbation, the Bible doesn't say anything specifically about it. So, the Bible doesn't say anything about smoking crack. Right? It doesn't say nothing about smoking weed. It doesn't say things about the specifics. But the Bible speaks to us in concept. It speaks to us in area. And so it talks a lot about lust. And I don't think it's possible to masturbate and to not be engaged in some form of lust.
Right.
Because that act, you have to engage your mind. You're thinking about someone or some action or something you're watching. And so now you're lusting after a person, and that's sin.
Yeah.
Plus, let's say that you said, man, I could do the physical act and I could disengage my brain and I could never lust after a person. I would highly disagree with you, but let's say that you were a robot and you could. Sin is a slippery slope. And so the devil always wants to take you farther than you intended to go.
Right.
And so where you start one place, you then find yourself dabbling and looking and doing other things to fulfill the same thing that you fulfilled previously.
there's also even like a scientific principle behind that.
Yeah.
Like you have pleasure centers in your brain that like dopamine gets juiced into, and that's what makes things feel good. But when you overwork, it's just like drugs. I mean, it's the same thing of like a drug addict has to up their dose of drugs every time to get the same high. It's the same thing with sexual stimulation and stuff. And so the same thing would happen is the slippery slope of now you need something a little bit more. So now you need to go look at this, or now you need to go think about this, or now this needs to happen and this
That's
needs
the
to
reason
happen.
there's all kind of freaky stuff out there.
Right.
Is because those people that need freaky stuff to have some kind of sexual stimulant, they started somewhere else,
Right.
but then it just progressed, and then they turned into a child molester.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, why would anybody want to do that? That
'Cause
doesn't make any sense. But it's because your dopamine pleasure centers have to keep, it's the reason people go from smoking cigarettes to smoking weed to doing crack. It's a progression.
And if
Sexual
you
is the same thing.
go back and listen, shameless plug, to the Minefield series that Pastor Treston preached a while ago, he talked about neural plasticity, how your brain hardwires things.
Yeah.
So if you are, this is scary, like I heard this in a teaching one time, but if you are a 13-year-old
Yeah.
lusting after other 13-year-olds, your brain starts to hardwire that and starts to form that neuron in your mind as that's your stimulant. So as you age, your body ages and changes, but your mental desires may or may not. And so you could very well be an adult still lusting after the thing you lusted after when you were 13.
That's why you got to be
That's
careful
crazy.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
it's incredibly, it's a super dangerous kind of slippery slope.
Wow, that's intense. All right, last one of our questions here. Can my girlfriend and I sleep in the same bed together or be home alone together if we don't do anything sexual?
This is a great question. It's the last one. Oh, we're already over on time. Okay.
You're good. You're good.
Can I just say one thing about masturbation? So a lot of times, guys that I've talked to or people that I've talked to have this idea that they need to have a release when I was in junior high, I was in band class, and I had a friend who played the trumpet, and so if he would play the trumpet too long, there was this little button on the front of the trumpet that you could push the button, it would open. It was called a spit valve. You ever seen a spit valve on a trumpet? So if a person who is smart enough to invent a trumpet can provide a way for something to be released that needs to be released, don't you think God, the greatest engineer of all time, designed your body that you don't have to have some mechanism to create a release? So don't allow the devil to trick you and to think that you need to do something for physiological reasons. That's jacked.
Right.
That's not true.
Well, and if you want to, because the question was talking about, what does the Bible say? Like, if you want to go even a little more biblical, Psalm 23 says that, I shall not want. And in creating physical pleasure for yourself in that way, you're wanting. And so you're not fully trusting God in that area, but you're wanting for a physical pleasure that you feel the need to take on yourself rather than be sustained by the presence of God. And then Paul talks about in Galatians 5, he's listing out the works of the flesh, and he lists sexual immorality, impurity, and sensuality, which I think, like we said, kind of necessitate
all are
that
wrapped
act.
up into that.
So.
All right,
Yeah.
Max, ask the question again.
One more time. Yeah, get rid of that. Can my girlfriend and I sleep in the same bed together or be home alone together if we don't do anything sexual?
He already answered this question a second ago. Sin is a slippery slope. All things are a slippery slope. And so maybe you can, but do you really want to find out? Like, maybe you might, but you might this time, and then the next time we will, but we'll just hold hands while we sleep. And then the next time, it's so hot, and you take your pants off, right? I mean, that's what happens, right? And then progressively.
My back hurts. Rub my shoulders.
Yes,
okay.
right. All of a sudden, you're in this situation that then you're like, what happened? No, you made choices, slippery slope choices that now put you in a situation. It's the whole line thing again. You're teetering so close on the edge of the line that the chances are extremely good that you will fall off the cliff. And so when we were dating, we had a lot of rules about he wasn't allowed in my bedroom ever, no, not ever. And we weren't allowed to be alone together not for very long anyways. And when we went on dates, most of the time we went on group dates just because any chance the enemy has to trip you up, it's your purity, but it's your destiny that he's trying to steal. And so you got to be really, really wise because, again, you don't know if that person you're dating is going to be your spouse. And we've kind of already talked about all of these, the answer to all of this, but you got to be really careful. So boundaries were a huge thing for us. He's taking it. What are you going to say?
Here's the thing. You could be as strong Christian as there is, but I'm telling you, things happen when you're alone with another person that you're attracted to, of the opposites, whatever, that you're attracted to. Crazy things can happen. The enemy is real. The enemy is powerful, but there are things that are occurring or happening around us that we're not aware of, especially when you're young. You just don't know. And so, we weren't allowed to do that. There were times that we did, that we were together, alone, and it gets serious fast, way faster than you wanted to. So you got to be really careful, especially when you're looking at that question.
Yeah. The Bible says that we're supposed to flee sexual immorality. And so flee means if the stage caught on fire and started shooting flames out, we would run out of the building. We would be like, oh, smack, this is getting serious, and we would run away. But when it comes to this, we don't flee it. We're like, I'm okay, I'm in control. Right. That's not true. What Aaron said, you can really love Jesus and still find yourself having problems. Yeah. How many of you someday want to be married? Okay, so you want to be married someday. I am married, right? And so I used to want to be married, but now I'm married. Is it okay for me to sleep in the bed with another woman other than my wife?
No.
Okay, so if I came and told you, hey, y'all, I met this lady, and, she's nice, and, it's okay, right? There's nothing happening.
That's absurd, right? Rachel's taking her hoops off. I'm going to take mine off, too.
But just trust me. I'm a pastor. I know the Bible. I'm just going to sleep in the bed with this other
Right.
lady. It's okay. That's crazy talk, right? And so if you're saying you want to be married, what's the difference for you?
Yeah.
Right.
So last thing on that. Does it matter how old you are, or does it matter how long you've been in the relationship?
No.
No, and
Oh.
No. Yeah.
The
it's
longer
irrelevant.
you're in a relationship, the harder it becomes.
right, exactly.
And as you age and as the stage of your life ages, your boundaries just change. Your boundaries don't go away ever.
Right.
So it's just like what Tristan kind of talked about when he was walking on the edge of the stage. Like if you go look when you're driving on a highway or something, go look at where they put the guardrails on the highways. They don't put the guardrails like right at the edge of a cliff because that's too late. That's if a car hit the guardrail there, it would fall through the guardrail and you'd fall off a cliff and you'd die. They put the guardrail way further back from the actual edge of the cliff. And so as human beings, like we kind of have to set our boundaries up the same way, and it's important to set them up now in these areas because when you get older, the temptation doesn't change. Like the temptation never, it's just like what Pastor Tristan, I mean, we were all kind of laughing at that example, but like that happens and happens frequently. And it's terrible and heartbreaking and devastating. And so you have to be aware of what you're doing now has consequences and can have benefits for you down the road. So if you establish this boundary now and you adhere to it and you walk with it, then when you're in a marriage and your stage of life changes, your temptations change, but they're still present, you still have this boundary set up and you're able to be successful within the boundaries that God's given you.
And what Brandon said is important in the fact that your guardrails, your basically your out of bounds markers, they need to stay when you're younger versus when you're older. Because think about it, now you've got parents to deal with. You don't want them to come around whenever you got a girl in your room, right? So you've got things you got to deal with right now. But when you get older, like these guys here going to college, parents aren't around, and there's cars you can drive anywhere to. And so if you just decide to modify your boundaries and change this, you know what? I'm older now. I'm wiser now. I know the enemy and what he's trying to do to me. I've got this. I can relax my boundaries. I can move them out a little bit because I've got this. I'm telling you, when you do that, that's when the devil's going to pounce, and he's going to say, you know what? Yeah, but I've got a whole new world for you because you're able to do whatever you want. You don't have your parents under your thumb. So you got to remember that.
Hey, can I give a little moment for you guys to ask a question if you have one before we end the night? Does anybody have any question? Anything you want? Michael.
I'm trying to figure out how to. You have to.
Yeah.
You go.
I think it's okay to enter into this exploratory world of dating without having an end game to it. You're going to have to learn how to interact with people who you might want to that you might want to marry someday. And so not saying that you're going to start dating everybody that you want to marry. I'm just saying I think it's a healthy thing for you to understand how to interact with them.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're making some huge commitment. But
dating is this really broad concept.
Right.
So dating covers like the first time you laugh with someone or the first time that you're like, hey, do you want to go to a movie? Like that's dating all the way till you're on your knee and saying, will you marry me? So it's this super broad definition. And so like I think that if you're saying that you're interested in somebody, that you should get to know them in group settings.
Yes, we talk about this all the time just as friends, that these are our best friends, but he is my best friend. And so the intention of dating is, yes, to get married one day, but also to find someone that is your friend, that you want to live your life with. And so I think before you exclusively date, like I told you, the way that I met him was in a group setting, and the way that I continued to pursue him was in a group setting.
And we were friends first.
Yeah, and we were friends for a long time before he finally was like, yeah, I'll date you. But it is I'm joking about that part, but it is you should be in a group setting, get to know, because it's really a friend that you're after. And once you understand that, I think, go ahead.
Oh, plus, going on a date with someone you don't know is kind of weird
Right.
anyways.
It's awkward.
Like, the only reason you're there is to, like, make out with each other, or, like
Yeah,
what are you
will
going,
we
like,
or
if you
won't
don't
we?
even know the person, why do you want to be on a date with them?
Right.
Other than negative intentions.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think if you're checking your heart too, and just whoever it is that you're interested in, if there's ever a point where you feel like I need something from this person, like emotionally, especially, like
Yeah.
I need this person to complete this hole or this void in me. They fill this up in me. It makes me feel good. Then that's where you're getting into a dangerous territory, because it's just like what we keep talking about is like group settings, and you're looking for a friend. Like I don't need anything
Right.
from my friends. Like, it would make me sad if a friend of mine moved away, but like it's not gonna wreck my life because I don't get emotional fulfillment from my friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. You know what I mean? Like, I do, but not in a deep, like, not in the way that God fulfills me.
Yeah.
And so, if it's something that's bolstering your life, and but if it's something that you're seeking affirmation from, then that might be good.
Thank you, Brandon. And
Good
so
question.
for the people online who might have not heard the question, it's what intention should I have going into a relationship?
Great
All right, next question. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Asking for
I'm
a
asking
friend.
for a friend.
That's almost what I called this series, asking for a friend. Yes. Yep. Don't try to
Max just
find the way
answered
out.
it.
Don't try to find the way out.
Yeah.
The Bible says
McKinley.
the marriage bed, not the engaged bed. There's no such thing.
No, my cousin, I grew up in an Assembly of God church, same as Living Church, and my cousin grew up knowing the same truth that I did. And I remember when he got engaged, he genuinely asked that question, like, are you sure? Because she's going to be my wife. And it was like, right, she's going to be, but she's not yet. And so you never know. You really never know. And so if for some reason that person doesn't end up being your wife, it's the same question we've talked about all night. You don't want somebody doing that with your wife, so.
And what a way to honor them.
Yes.
So Rachel and I, we didn't have sex before we got married. She wanted to really bad, but I told her no.
Oops.
And so, what a great way, what a great way for me to honor her. What a great way.
I'll call you out. He
Well,
work
duh.
out. Look,
Well,
listen,
duh.
He's hot, but like he would work out and get them traps going right here.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, just in my bathroom, and snap a picture, and his traps were like, hey.
So,
Hey.
what was
Yeah, I
saying?
did want him,
Look
but
at
he
Max.
wanted me more.
What was I saying? So, I don't remember.
McKinley. Is it bad to be in the friend zone? Elaborate why not.
I think
What I
coming from someone who was perpetually in the friend zone in high school. No,
Hey,
no,
I graduated college.
no. I think it has a negative connotation because people associate it with rejection. So when people are in the friend zone, they think this other person doesn't have the same feelings for me as I have for them. Therefore, I am being rejected by that person, which means now I am in pain, right? But it's really not. Like, that can actually be a really wonderful place to be, because it's what we keep pointing to of you're not, if you're in middle school, high school, you're not necessarily looking for your spouse. You are navigating this world of relationships with the opposite sex, and more than anything, you're getting to know other people on a friendship kind of level, and you're understanding who you are in Christ and how that can be reciprocated to other people, and how your friendships can be built that way. And so really being in the friend zone, if you can get past the feelings of rejection, can really be a place where you can have a really valuable friendship with someone and get to know them really well.
Go ahead, Pastor.
let me catch up to what I was saying. The question that Rachel, we were answering was if you're engaged, it's okay to have sex. What I was saying is, what a great way to honor the person that you're engaged to say, you know what, we are engaged, but I'm going to honor you enough to not take something from you that isn't mine yet. And so it's a way to honor, to be patient.
Okay.
As far as the friend zone, what I've learned about the friend zone
Yeah.
is that a lot of times when people say the friend zone is one person is in the friend zone and the other person has a serious crush on the person, and there's just a miscommunication. And so we just need to check our heart and ask if we're getting friend zoned because we really do want to be trying to date that person.
Yeah. Okay, one last one.
Oh man, so
We
many.
got Katya.
Oh, Zachary.
We'll answer it. Rapid fire, go.
That's how the enemy is. That's how the devil is. You know, until you really don't want something, it chases you down. But like the enemy wants to distract you from your focus. Of course, when you decide to stay in a path that's just focusing on God, all the guys want to come and hang out and be your girlfriend or whatever. That's
So
just
the
how it
question
works.
was,
So stay strong.
what do you do when boys are hollering at you, but you're hollering at
Don't
God?
holler back. Do not holler.
I started eating healthy a couple months ago,
Right.
and then I went out to eat the other day, and while I was at the restaurant, they said over the little speaker, "Hey, we made an extra chocolate milkshake. If anyone wants a free chocolate milkshake." That's the devil. That's what just happened to y'all. You say, "I'm going to eat healthy. Who wants a free chocolate milkshake?" That's the devil. All right, what's next?
All right, we got
Zach.
one more. Zach.
Go quick.
Well, that really is dependent upon if you did anything sexually.
Right.
Because if you did some
Or
stuff sexually
emotionally.
or emotionally,
Or
then it's going to be
emotionally.
awkward. But if you just dated and then you were just like, you know what, this isn't working out, I think to just have a simple conversation, say, hey, I really
that's it.
respect you as a friend. I think you're a great person. I'm not ready right now.
Right.
So
And that's if you screwed around with her or not. If you did, well, shame on you. But you still need to communicate. Communication is important. So
forgiveness on you.
we're still going to church together or not or whatever. We're still going to school together. We've got to figure out how to coexist. And I like you as a friend, so talk about it. Have a conversation. And I promise, if you guys are both vulnerable in it, you'll walk away from it feeling a lot more comfortable with being around them in the future.
Sorry.
Dude,
Real
power.
fast before we leave, I just want to, because this is my fault. Because this is a small community of friends and this is a small place, like, it is super wise to be wise and to be friends and to not get too emotionally attached, because the chances of you being in community with these people for the next 4 to 6 years is really, really high. And so as we're talking, you might be like, yeah, that sounds crazy, lady. I really want to date this person. I understand that, but what Zach's saying is really true. You have to be in relationship and in community together here at Spark for a while, and so it's much easier to just be friends than to date around and swap girlfriend and boyfriend, because then you're just kissing
Yeah.
each other, and that's weird.
Yeah. Okay, one last one. We had one in the back, right? It's okay. Anybody else? All right.
Oh, break up with that
Break
scrub.
up with
Yeah.
that joker
No.
right now. No, that is the reason why the bedroom and the bed and the at home question is a really serious question, because your intentions might be pure and he might be telling you that his intentions are pure, but you don't know until you're in the moment whether they are or not. And I'm telling you, as a ladies, be really careful the environment you allow yourself to be put in, because though, as Brandon said before, though God will honor you, redeem it, though you can still retain your purity, you don't want to be in a situation where you wish later you hadn't been. And so you don't know their intentions. Be careful.
Your boundaries are yours to
Right.
set up. It's your boundaries. They belong to you. You and God set them up. That doesn't mean that everyone else in your life will respect them always.
Right.
So you have to be really aware of when that's happening, and because a person that is not respectful of your boundaries in whatever area that may be is not a person that's worthy of your time.
In all you're doing in your relationships, you need to honor God with all you do. And remember that you are fighting to stay pure, and that's hard work. And so you've got to not lay in the bed with the enemy. And I'm not talking about the person that's laying in the bed with you, but with the actual temptation. You cannot lay in bed with the temptation. You cannot sit on the couch by yourselves for hours with the temptation. And so you've got to fight for what you want. If you want to be redeemed in your purity, then fight for that. If you want to live a life that's pure, when you marry, you're going to have the first interaction with your mate, with your spouse, then you've got to fight for it. This is a battle that the enemy will start, and it starts young with you guys. And teenage years are the years that it happens worse. The consequences are that you lose your virginity, but also you can get an STD, you can get a child, and so it's all too real. And so you've got to fight for that purity. You got to fight to stay honorable to God and to your spouse in the future.
I turned myself off. Hey, I'll say one last thing before
That's
I
important
pray.
sometimes.
I'll say what?
Not for you, just
I don't know what you said, but go ahead, roast me up. One last thing. One last thing before we end the night tonight. And I think I'll sum this whole series up with just this one sentence. We're having the hard conversations now, so you don't have to have the hard conversations later.
so true.
Amen. Hallelujah. That's so
Right?
good.
Let's
Yeah.
pray.